In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to create writing with an image in Photoshop. Hey everyone, my name's Justin and you can find me on justthisgood.com. And in this tutorial, I'm going to create a word, but I'm going to create it out of a bunch of flowers. And you can replicate this with any word or shape and any image. So I've got this photo open because it's got some good top-down shapes that will work well to piece together a word because they're pretty clean cut. So what I want to do now is I'm going to just select two of these flowers and cut them out and separate them. And then we're going to place them on our new canvas. So normally there's a bunch of different ways to make a selection, and of course the cleaner your selection the better. So if you've got a hard to cut out image, I would recommend using the pen tool. But for this tutorial, the quick selection tool will actually work just fine. And I'm gonna use my quick selection tool to just select this flower that I've picked out. So Photoshop is pretty good at finding the edges in a clean cut image like this. You can also click Refine Edge once you've done that, and you can adjust the radius a bit and smooth out the edge. But really, we're going to be duplicating this so much that it's going to look fine. So if I see anything that I need to fix up, I can always brush over them here. And once I'm happy, I can go ahead and click OK. So now I have one flower selected. So I'm going to right click and layer via copy. So now I have that flower on its own layer. Next, I'm going to pick out one more flower. So we're going to go ahead and use this one here. So let's see if the quick selection tool can find the edges of this flower. Alright, so it did actually find those pretty well. So again, I'm going to click Refine Edge, smooth things out a little bit, and I'll select OK when I'm ready. So now I'm going to right click, layer via copy. So now I have my two flowers on their own layer. Alright, so now we want to open up our canvas that we want to create the word out of. So I'm going to go to File, New, and just for the sake of this tutorial, I'll use this 1920 by 1080, just a typical widescreen image. I'm going to get rid of these guidelines because I don't want them by hitting Command H. So now if I go back to my cutout layer here, I can drag my layers. I'll hold Shift and drag my layers onto my new canvas, and now we can begin working. So the stock image that I used was pretty large, so that's good. Now I can shrink these down and they won't lose quality, rather than using a really small image and trying to enlarge it. So I'm going to go ahead and hide those for now, but I have them ready to work with, and I'm going to pick out the word or shape that I want to use. So I'm going to use some text here, and it's going to say sorry. I did see this on some type of music cover, some type of album art. That's where I got the idea. Okay, so now that I've got my font placed, I can begin making the image. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and let's start with the white flower. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I want to keep these layers untouched so I can always go back to them. So I'm going to Command J, duplicate it, and now I can hide these two layers if I ever want to go back to them. So now I'm going to use the Command T or Edit Transform shortcut, hold Shift and shrink it all the way down to a size that's just as wide as the widest part of the text. So something right along there. Alright, so we'll start with the S here actually. So what you want to do is just keep duplicating and piece by piece fill in the letter as best as you can. So of course, to add some variation, you want to go to Command T and hold Shift and then rotate them every now and then. And remember that we're also going to be using that pink flower, so I'm going to maybe leave some space here. Alright, so get used to using the Command T, Command J, Shift, and then the arrow keys to move stuff around. So I'm just going to go ahead and piece in some of this letter here, and then we're going to switch to the next flower once I'm done. Alright, so now I have a bunch of these layers here, a bunch of copies, but what I want to do is I can merge all of them except for one, so I can go back and keep using it. And remember, we still have our originals here. So now we're going to go to our pink flower. I'll duplicate that so I can start working with it, and I'm going to shrink it down just like my white flower and start doing the same thing. Now keep in mind the layer positioning here. We have the pink flower under the white flowers, so if you want to mix things up, you can put some layers on top of others so that it really looks like a bed of flowers or whatever image you're working with. So now I'm going to fill in some of those gaps. And you don't have to be too perfect because we're going to keep shrinking the image and fill in all those tiny little gaps. Alright, so now I've got my pink and white flowers filling in the majority of the letter right now. It would be pretty okay right now, but we really want to sell the effect, so the next step is the most important. And also a little tip, if you're working with letters like H or I, where they have the same vertical lines, just remember you can copy and duplicate. Once you've done one section of the letter, you can just duplicate it all the way over to the next section. Like in this image, the letter R appears twice, so I'm really only having to do 4 letters. So again, I've got on top here, I've got my white layer, my pink layer, and then all these copies here, I'll just merge for the sake of keeping it organized. So now we're going to start working again. We're going to duplicate our white layer, and this time we're going to shrink it down really small, like 25% of that other size, because we're going to start filling in these corners here. So we're going to go ahead and fill in these corners, and that's really going to sell the effect. It's really going to look much nicer and much more filled in when you have these small layers. Now I'm going to go back to my pink flower here and duplicate that and then shrink it down to about 25% as well and do a little bit more filling in. Things are going to get a little bit unorganized, but if you just keep track of it, you can always minimize and highlight things to see what's going on, and then once you're done, you can always merge everything together. Just always keep your 2 main flowers ready. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep duplicating here. Alright, so you can continue this as much as you like. The more filled in you make it and the more you rotate and perfect things, the better your final effect is going to look like. But I'm going to go ahead and merge everything together. And now we have our S. So if I minimize my text layer, we have that realistic looking S. And you're just going to repeat this for the rest of the letters, duplicating and shortcutting where you can, and eventually you'll have the whole word. So at that point you delete the text layer and you'd have your word made out of images. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish this up here, and I'll show you guys the final effect when it's done. Alright, so I filled in every letter. You can go ahead and hide your original text layer, and now you have your entire word spelled out of your images. And it is time consuming, but it's not difficult, and it would also look cool with the shape. Like, one simple thing you could do instead of doing 5 different letters is just do like a heart or something. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure you check out my channel for more, and definitely subscribe to stay tuned for future tutorials. If you had any questions or comments, please let me know below, and I'll see you next time.